Well, this morning we have a very different subject than the one last week.
Under proper training and thinking, constructive attitudes and so forth, this magnetic field becomes highly protective. If, however, it is corrupted by the individual himself, if he permits negative attitudes to take over, if he misuses the powers and faculties with which he has been endowed, the field begins to deteriorate. And the more it deteriorates, the more likely the individual is to suffer from external conditions. This deterioration is not only physical but magnetic, also physical, etheric, and emotional, and may extend as far as the mental life of the person. The Earth is similarly equipped. It has a strong magnetic field of its own, which at the present time is in a miserable state of disorder. This magnetic field is a kind of repository in which all the mistakes of mankind pile up together, and it forms a mass of disconnected, constricting, and damaging vibratory rates. We know at the present time, and notice, that nature is becoming rebellious. We have not been willing up to the present time to assume that anything that we do can have any effect except to advance progress. But there are many things that we do that not only do not advance progress, but destroy it. And in this case, the magnetic field plays a very important part. At the present time, it is little better than a sewer as far as the planet is concerned. Into it is poured all the corruption with which we are now burdening our national, international relationships. It is now contaminated by almost every thought and action of people. We have no longer any attitude of realization that effects follow causes, or that there is anything in nature that can punish misdeeds. The old theologian laid all this to God and the devil in constant conflict. Now we realize that it is a more simple problem, right and wrong in constant conflict. Right builds up the vibratory rates of the body, results in conduct and action which assists and strengthens the vibratory rates of nature, and helps us all to grow, be happy, helps the flowers to bloom, and all these things, whereas a contamination of this field can result in everything that is detrimental and destructive. If we go back to the legendary history of the islands of Atlantis, we are reminded that according to the account preserved by Plato, this continent was destroyed because of its corruption. It became a place of iniquities, disloyalties, evils, and excesses, and was wiped out in a single night. This has been considered as a legend, but at the same time it is obvious to us today that while we hope definitely that we're not going to be wiped out, it is about time for us to begin to clean up our planet and ourselves. This little planet is being burdened with much more difficulty than any honorable planet in the solar system can take care of. We look around us and we see 6 billion people breaking natural laws. Most of them do not even realize they're breaking laws because they do not even know there are any rules in the game. They feel that the individual can have anything he can get by any means, that he can accomplish anything he wants to accomplish, even if it is by way of corruption. Therefore, the planet is becoming burdened with all kinds of mental and emotional corruptions. In addition to this, we have the physical misuse of energies. We see the great city rising up, and a great city is really a source of death. A great city is an area of land in which all natural vibrations are impaired. The ground under our feet is covered with concrete. The atmosphere up to the height of a building is corrupted by the very concrete these buildings are made of, and everything is done without any still open to considerable debate. So the general point of view is that the will of this power is the perfection of all that is, according to some code of perfection, which at the present time is largely physical.
perfection may call for something better than physical, but the reason for it is the conveniences of physical life, such as, for instance, the end of poverty, the end of crime, and the end of many vices that arise which are against the common good of society. So now we have a problem that goes right back to the concept
we have a rather interesting subject that might not be entirely appreciated from the title.
Humanity is a projection of deity into
about 40 or 50 years ago,
was this projection necessary?
Dr. Kilner of the Hospital of Liverpool, England, began experimenting
if we wish to assume that deity is all powerful,
of making visible the magnetic field of the human body and by extension of the planet. Dr. Kilner invented a screen which can be found and described in his book, The Human Atmosphere. And this screen enabled him and any person without any clairvoyant ability to so affect the optic nerve that it was possible to see the magnetic field of the human body. Experiments on this also were done by our group many years ago, the days of the Church of the People, and Dr. Frederick Finch Strong made researches in this entire area. But the point of importance is that there is a magnetic field, that this field is related to the human being, and from it Kilner was able to diagnose a number of diseases and also distinguish immediately a pregnancy. As time went on, we more or less forgot the invisible atmosphere in which we exist. We should have been reminded of it by television. For over the years at this time, there are hundreds of different television channels in many countries, and these are all carefully
hang-ups in the development of an ethical world principle. Why is man not perfect if he is the product of perfection? And if he is not the product of perfection, why does he hope for perfection if the only power that exists cannot bestow it, or does not bestow it? Now there has to be an answer to this, and the material scientists take it very simply. There is no such thing as a control demanding perfection. The human being is a growth, an unfoldment of physical forces and factors. And enfolded within it, this being is life, integration, and a power to grow, to become, and to propagate. These things are inherent in forms, but they do not contain within themselves any strict or certain form of ethics. They are growth, producing right and wrong are finally sorted out by the results of action. The individual who has enough experiences gradually comes to certain conclusions. This theory, however, has been subject to a number of reversals. At the present time, we have more intellectual knowledge than ever before and less ethics. We have developed a tremendous growth of materialism away from ethics, away from morality, and away from principles. Now, if the scientific process is complete, and the final end of all things is the production of a self-sustaining creature, a being that is sufficient of all its needs, then science is in trouble, because it isn't producing such a creature. If, on the other hand, only morality and ethics, temptation, and gradual moral growth can produce perfection, or produce release from problems, then why and how does this come through in our theological studies and considerations? So we come to a very interesting problem here. Namely, let us now say that we are going to think in terms of a different concept of what humanity is. We've thought of humanity as a biological miracle on the physical level and a psychological miracle on the religious level. But perhaps there's something else to the thing. There's something more that we haven't investigated at all. And that is, what is the basic structure of life in this world, or any other created sphere of life? What is life in this sense? Now, the ancients had another concept of this, which we have generally overlooked. One of the oldest forms of symbolism for life is a river. It is a stream. And in most philosophies of antiquity, this stream of life is flowing out of a cause. It is like a stream rising in a great mountain and gradually drifting down the side of a hill, gathering small ripplets to itself until finally, with a tremendous crash, this stream of life falls into the sea. And this is the great cycle of life, that this is life moving inevitably towards infinite differentiation and finally into ultimate reorganization and reintegration. Therefore, instead of thinking of life as simply an energy in the sense of humanity, let us think of humanity as an aspect of life. That life itself is a forever ensouling power. It is continually unfolding itself. And this great stream of life, which we call humanity, is one tremendous entity. An entity which is, according to some of the Hindu philosophies, composed of nearly 60 billion single entities. That what we call humanity is a vast energy, a vast concept and complex of motion, life, integration, and power. That what we call the human being is a member of this great society which we call humanity. Humanity is one structure, one being, one substance, and this humanity rises within the unfolding of universal phenomena. It arises not in materialism, but in the great process of nature and nature's labors, namely, be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Therefore, we are thinking now not of humanity as a series of individuals alone, but humanity as the one being which we call the human being. We find this in the ancient religious systems of both Christianity and the ancient Hebrew systems from which the Old Testament was derived. We find, therefore, that there in the Old Testament that Adam Kadmon, is not a person. Adam Kadmon is humanity collective. There is one mysterious power. This being is one being. And this one being consists of all individual human beings considered together and moving together in the great river of life. And this river of life is being moving to the perfection of itself. This is a little abstract and a little big to think about all at once, but it gives us a very important clue, namely that we are moving together along a pattern that is intended to bring about certain definite results. In other words, we are not paying for past sins, nor are we doomed to make more sins and nothing else. We are here to grow, to unfold the potential which we call human, which is one of the innumerable levels of life in the infinite universe. We are one creature, more or less, cast away like Robinson Crusoe on a desert island, but not cast away outside of the divine purpose, cast away to prove and justify that purpose. We are here to achieve the growth of this being which we call humanity. This being is made up of an infinite number of separate personalities, all growing together. This great being which we call the humanity also breaks up within itself into a number of races, sub-races, and divisions, all of which are part of one structure. This one structure being a level of growth in the universe, a level that has become part of everything, just as much a justified fact as the development of solar systems, or the development of planets, or the development of various continents on planets. These things are growth symbols, and humanity is an entity growing. One entity, made up of an infinite variety of individualities. This was the point that was made by Herbert Spencer, that man is an infinite variety. And when we think of man, we think of mankind not as a person, but as the person, composed of all the